In Revelation 6:1, the Lamb who is worthy begins to break the seals one at a time, unleashing the 7 seal judgments, and then the 7 trumpet judgments, and then the 7 bowl judgments. A chronological progression through the 7-year tribulation, Daniel's 70th week. But these cycles of 7 judgments are interrupted by what we are calling interludes. Now, typically, these interludes take place at roughly the same time as the judgments they interrupt, but sometimes the interludes can jump forward in time, like the call in chapter 14, fallen is Babylon. And sometimes these interludes can jump back in time. Like in chapter 12, we see Israel gives birth to the Messiah, and then Jesus ascends after his death and resurrection. The first interlude, however, is in direct response to a question asked in the 6th seal. And we saw this in our argument against recapitulation last time, but let's go look at it one more time quickly. So here is our 6th seal, and after it, there's a horrible earthquake and cosmic events take place, and the kings of the earth and the great ones, they say, fall on us, hide us from the face of him who's seating on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb, for there the day of the wrath has come, and here's their question, who can stand? And John, and Jesus, who revealed this vision to John, answers their question in the very next verse. Chapter 7, verse 1, we see there's more judgment coming, but an angel says, hold back that judgment. Wait until we have sealed the servants of our God. And who are these sealed ones? Well, 144,000 from every tribe of the sons of Israel. Now, are these literal Jews? And is this literally 144,000? Wouldn't you like to know? Well, a couple of reasons why I think we're talking about literal Jews who are living during Daniel's 70th week, the 7-year tribulation. This term Israel is never applied to the church, never applied to Gentile believers. Even in Galatians 6:16, it's not. It seems that what we have here in chapter 7 is a deliberate contrast between the tribes of Israel and the tribes of the nations. We have a multitude from every nation, language, tribe, and tongue. These are two opposite groups. There is a definite number of Jews who are on earth, and then an indefinite number of Gentiles who are in heaven. It's indefinite because it's a great multitude, and it's definite because it's a limited number, 144,000. Now, will there be exactly that number who are preserved through the tribulation? Well, I don't know. I mean, if God can preserve 7,000 worshipers of Yahweh during the ministry of Elijah in the Old Testament, why can't he preserve 144,000 during the tribulation? There is one oddity, however, with this list in Revelation chapter 7. There's a couple of tribes missing. Isn't that odd? Look at this. So here is our list of the 12 tribes of Israel, but where are all of them? Look here. I've put them in a table for us. And I've kind of organized them by who their mother is. Judah's mother was Leah, as was Reuben's, but Gad's mother is Zilpah, who is Leah's servant, and likewise, you see how it's organized in this way. But you'll notice that Dan is missing from this list, and so is Ephraim. And it is a little bit odd that Judah would be placed first. Not really, because it's a line from the tribe of Judah. And then also, why is Levi present in this list? Oftentimes Levi isn't. And an even bigger question, why is Joseph there when Joseph's two sons are Manasseh and Ephraim? It is a little bit odd. And I have read a lot of different explanations about the absence of these tribes, specifically the absence of Dan, but I don't really like any of the explanations, to be honest. I do know, however, from Ezekiel 38 that these tribes will be restored and have a place, a tribal allotment in the land of Israel during the millennium. So they are not blotted out from Yahweh's book there in that way. what then is the role, the purpose of these 144,000? Well, we're not told explicitly, but I think we can do a little bit of speculation. It may be that they are meant to fulfill the calling of Israel to be a light to the nations and evangelize them during this 7-year tribulation period. Now, this would harmonize well with Matthew 24, especially verse 14. Now, I think it's verses 9 through 14 describe the birth pains, things that will take place during the first half of the tribulation. And verse 14 says that this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. So perhaps that verse is describing the preaching of the gospel of the kingdom by these 144,000 before the end. Quite interesting. Well, the evangelistic purpose that we just described here does coincide well with our next interlude here in chapters 10 and 11. And for the first time here, specifically in chapter 11, John is called to participate in his vision. Take a look at this in 11, verse 1. Let's jump over to chapter 11, where John was given a measuring rod, just like Ezekiel. And he was told, rise and measure the temple of God and the altar and those who worship there. But hey, don't measure the court outside of the temple. Leave that out, for it is given over to the nations. Now, a temple, what is John seeing and what is he measuring? Well, it's my perspective that unless the details in this vision are physically impossible and obviously symbolic, that we should grant John the benefit of the doubt to consider that there will be a tribulation temple standing during Daniel's 70th week in Jerusalem, and that sacrifices will be resumed during this time in the future. I mean, isn't this exactly what Paul said would happen in 2 Thessalonians 2? Look at this, in Paul's reference to a future tribulation temple in Jerusalem, where he's talking about the Antichrist, the man of lawlessness, the son of perdition, who will be active during the day of the Lord. And he says that this individual, the beast of Revelation 13, will take his seat in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. But more on that in a minute. Well, in this temple and in this city, God is going to grant authority to his 2 witnesses who will prophesy for 1,260 days. Now, I take it these are 2 literal individuals, 2 people, 2 humans who will live during the tribulation and who will prophesy during that time. Now, let's read a little bit about their prophetic ministry during the tribulation. What are these guys going to do? Back to Revelation 11. Let's read about these 2 witnesses. They're going to perform signs. Fire is going to go from their mouth. Not quite sure what that's going to look like. But they have the power to shut the sky, just like Elijah. They can turn the water into blood, like Moses, and strike the earth with every kind of plague, also like Moses. However, they're going to be killed. Look at verse 7. When they finish their testimony, the beast, who's this? Who rises from the bottomless pit will make war on them, conquer them, and kill them. However, after 3 days and a lot of celebrating, the breath of God will enter into them again. They will come back to life, and they will ascend and join God in heaven, kind of like a rapture. So when is this going to take place, this ministry of the 2 witnesses? Well, observe that this chapter describes the city of Jerusalem being given over to the nations and trampled for 42 months. Now, that's a relevant tribulation time period, isn't it? And then the 2 witnesses are to prophesy for 1,260 days, the same length of time. Now, are we talking about 2 concurrent time periods overlapping the same period of time, or are we talking about consecutive periods? This happens and then this happens. Well, it is my perspective. I propose the following reconstruction of the events in chapter 11. Let's return to our very helpful chart of Daniel's 70th week, where it seems to me that let's just go back just a hair here. Here we are. Okay. Reset that. The Antichrist is going to make his covenant with Israel, a 7-year covenant. And during this time, he's going to reinstate the sacrifice of the Jews at that temple. Perhaps he's even going to participate in the reconstruction of this temple. However, the two witnesses are going to condemn this unholy alliance with the Antichrist during this time, during the first 3.5 years of the tribulation. And perhaps they are even going to be used of God to call down the seal judgments and the trumpet judgments. Now, why do I say this? Look here at verse 10. Where it says that those who dwell on earth will rejoice over them and exchange presents. It'll be like Christmas because these two prophets had been a torment to those who dwell on the earth. Remember, it says that they can strike the earth with every kind of plague. So maybe they were used of God to call down the plagues of the trumpet and seal judgments. But then, at the midway point, the beast is going to kill these two witnesses, and this is going to unleash the second woe, a massive earthquake in the city, and a tenth of the city is going to fall. And after this, now that the two witnesses are off the scene, the beast has no qualms about stopping the sacrifices entirely there in the temple, because he's going to take control of that space from now on. But what about that beast? I mean, where does he come from? Well, I'm glad you asked. John is going to wait until chapter 12 to begin to introduce the bad guys in Revelation, the opponents, the villains. Their leader, of course, is Satan. And Satan is symbolized as a dragon. This is a dragon that has 7 heads and 10 horns, just like the beast. Kind of curious. Well, in verse 4 of this chapter, the dragon is going to stand before this pregnant woman who is standing on the moon, and the sun is above her, and she has 12 stars on her head as a crown. And she's pregnant, and she's about to give birth. And this dragon wants to devour the child. And this is a child, mind you, who is going to rule the nations. It says that he will rule the nations with a rod of iron. However, he is unable to kill this child, the Messiah, Jesus, because he ascends to the right hand of God, is what it says here in this chapter, in chapter 12. So he turns his attention then to the mother, to this woman, and he tries to kill her. However, she is miraculously delivered a couple of times. She's given 2 wings like a bird, and she is flown into the wilderness, and the dragon pursues her and spits out water from his mouth, and then the earth opens up and swallows the water, and she is rescued. Clearly some symbolic language obviously is happening with this description. And being foiled yet again, he can't kill the child, he can't kill the woman, he goes after her offspring. He makes war on the rest of her offspring. Now, what is going on here, and who's the woman, and when is this going to take place? Well, because this woman gives birth to the Messiah, it really does seem quite undeniable that the woman is Israel. And this interpretation is confirmed for us by chapter 12, verse 1, where we're given a very specific description of this woman and the crown on her head. I did allude to it a minute ago, but let's solidify this connection for us. We're in not chapter 1, we're in chapter 12, where a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman who was clothed with the sun. The moon is under her foot and on her feet, and on her head is a crown of 12 stars. And this is an obvious and direct connection to one of Joseph's dreams in Genesis chapter 37, where it says here in chapter 9, he dreamed another dream. He told his brothers, probably shouldn't have told his brothers. He said that I've dreamed a dream. Behold, the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars, he's star number 12, are bowing down to me. This is a description of the whole nation of Israel. All 12 tribes are bowing down to him. So Israel then, the woman, is going to flee into the wilderness, and the dragon is going to pursue Israel into the wilderness. But when is this flight going to take place? Well, notice that twice in this chapter, the woman is nourished in the wilderness for a period of 1,260 days. Now, is this the first half of the tribulation or the second half? Well, remember, the Antichrist makes a covenant with Israel at the beginning of the tribulation, and that covenant persists throughout the entire first half of the tribulation. The temple has been restored. Israel is relatively secure during this time, albeit all of the judgments are taking place. It is only at the second half, the midway point of the tribulation, that the Antichrist turns on Israel and stops its sacrifice. So it seems like this, the flight of the Jews is going to be in the second half of the tribulation. Let's throw that detail onto our chart over here. So at this point, the sacrifices are stopped because the two witnesses have been killed, and the Antichrist is going to set up the abomination of desolation, this image of himself demanding to be worshipped. And the Jews, when they see that, the faithful Jews, there's a lot of unfaithful Jews during this time, the faithful ones are going to flee from Jerusalem at this time and be nourished in hiding. Let's see what's next. Yes, okay. Well, unable to attack the child and the woman, the beast is going to turn on her offspring. And how is he going to do that? Well, chapter 13 tells us how Satan is going to try to attack the offspring of the woman, other believers alive during this 7-year tribulation. He's going to do so by raising up two beasts. The first beast, and these beasts are allowed to make war on the saints, and they do so for the second half of the tribulation here. The first beast is from the sea, and this beast, of course, we know already, goes by many names. This is the Antichrist. This is the man of lawlessness, the son of perdition, Daniel's little horn in chapter 7 of that book. He is a human being who is empowered by Satan to rule the world during the tribulation, and he is symbolized as having 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, we suggested earlier in our discussion of preterism that these 7 heads refer to sequential kingdoms. And let's make that case yet again when describing this beast. Sequential kingdoms. The 7 heads are 7 mountains. There are also 7 kings or kingdoms, 5 of whom have fallen, 1 who is, and 1 who is yet to come, and then another. The 8th will belong to the 7th, will follow after that. Now, who are the 5 who have fallen? These are kingdoms who ruled over Israel in the past, but have fallen. Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persia, and Greece. Now, this seems to be the proper interpretation because of a detail we're given in the description of the beast in chapter 13. So here's the career of the beast, the Antichrist. Now notice here in chapter 13, this beast who's rising out of the sea, look what animals he resembles. He is first like a leopard, and then like a bear, and then like a lion. The same 3 beasts which came out of the sea in Daniel chapter 7, however, their order is reversed. That is because Daniel is looking into the future, and he sees first a lion, which is Babylon, and then after that lion, he sees a bear, which is Persia, and after that a leopard, which is Greece. But John is looking in the opposite direction. He's looking back in time, and therefore, first he sees Greece, the leopard, and then Persia, the bear, and then finally the lion, which is Babylon. However, this beast not only has 7 heads, that is sequential kingdoms, he also has 10 horns, which are simultaneous kings. Notice how these 10 horns are going to live and exist at the same time as the Antichrist during the 7-year tribulation. Back to our chart. Look here at the role of these 10 horns with the beast. So the beast has 10 horns, and these 10 horns, I tell you, now we're over in Revelation chapter 17. The left column is Revelation, the right column is Daniel 7, and the parallel statements here are describing similar events. Daniel is very important, you know already, for understanding the book of Revelation. Now, back to Revelation chapter 17. The 10 horns are 10 kings. These kings have not yet received power at the same time that John is living when he's receiving these visions. But when they do receive authority, they're only going to do so for a short period of time, which again makes sense of this statement here, which says that the other who is not yet to come, and when he does come, he'll only remain for a little while. That is for 1 hour. Uh, these 10 horns aren't going to rule for very long. The tribulation isn't a very long period of time, but they are going to rule together with the beast. And notice here that it says that these 10 horns, these kings, these literal human beings who are going to be on the earth during the tribulation, they're going to give their power over to the beast, handing over their royal power to the beast. But curiously, and it seems that this event is going to mark the transition between the seventh kingdom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the eighth kingdom. So the seventh kingdom is when the beast is ruling with the 10 horns, but the eighth kingdom is when the horns give their authority over to the beast. So they're working side by side. They're teammates at this point. But curiously, at some point in the tribulation, probably quite late, the beast is going to turn on some of those horns. 3 of them is what Daniel tells us. The 10 horns which are on her head, on its head, the head of the beast, and the other horn, the little horn, is going to come up, and before which 3 of those horns will fall. He will pluck up those horns by the roots. He will put down 3 kings, this Antichrist figure during this time. Now, he's going to reign, the Antichrist, for a limited period of time. It's going to be for this, the political actions of the Antichrist, the beast. He's going to exercise authority for 42 months. This is the latter half of the tribulation. Returning now to this chart here. So, at the midway point, the beast is going to secure the global authority with the 10 kings, allowing him to rule and rule with the nations, over the nations for the second half of the tribulation, the 42 months there. And the 10 kings are going to give over their authority to him at this time. But it seems that probably later in the tribulation, the beast is going to kill 3 of those horns. Kind of curious. Well, there are 2 beasts in Revelation chapter 13. The first beast is from the sea. This is the Antichrist. The second beast is from the land, or from the earth. And this is another satanically empowered human being who will be alive during the tribulation. And his role is to make the whole earth worship the beast, whose mortal wound was healed and he was alive again. So you can kind of notice from these details that what we have going on here is the making of an unholy trinity. So we have God the Father is mimicked or mocked by Satan. Satan is assuming the role of God the Father in this unholy trinity. And the first beast, he's like Jesus Christ, isn't he? We know Jesus died and came back to life. And this first beast is going to have a mortal wound that is healed. He dies and comes back to life. And then the second beast is the third member of this false unholy trinity, the false prophet, who, just like the Holy Spirit, its role is to point us to Christ. So this false prophet, the second beast, points us to the Antichrist, or points the individuals who live during this tribulation period to the beast. Now, notice then, it seems likely that this event where the Antichrist dies and comes back to life probably took place during the very beginning of the tribulation, and was very possibly the cause of the beast's rise to power. Very curious. Well, this false prophet is going to enforce the religious regime of the Antichrist by 2 means, right? His whole deal is to get everyone alive during the tribulation to worship the beast, and he's going to do so with 2 means. First, an image. He's going to set up an image of the beast, and he's going to be allowed to animate, to give life to this image, and it's going to be able to kill people who don't worship the image of the beast. This very likely is a reference to the abomination of desolations, which will be set up in the temple in Jerusalem. Now, the second means of enforcing the beast's religious regime is the mark of the beast, the number of his name, which will prevent anyone from buying or selling during this time if they don't have the beast. Now, the number of his name is 666. However, I think there is no point whatsoever in speculating on who this individual may be who has this name, the name 666, because Paul tells us clearly that the Antichrist, the man of lawlessness, will not be revealed until the period of the day of the Lord and until the restrainer is removed. That hasn't happened. Therefore, the Antichrist is not on the scene. Now, this mark of the beast is going to function like a counterfeit seal. So we have the mark of the believer, and then we have the mark of the beast. Now, you remember the promise to the overcomer, to Philadelphia? Their promise that the conqueror, Jesus, will write on them the name of my God. And so this mark of the beast is a mark of allegiance for those who follow the beast during the tribulation, and it will be enforced during the second half of Daniel's 70th week. Again, let's throw that detail here on our chart. So the false prophet is going to he's going to set up the abomination of desolations there in the temple, and he's going to establish the mark of the beast, and the result of that will be a period of great tribulation on believers during this time. Well, this is some freaky stuff. I mean, isn't it? It's got me sweating a little bit, to be honest. This is freaky stuff. And John acknowledges the horror and the terror that will be active on the earth during the reign of the Antichrist in the latter half of the tribulation, as described in chapter 13. He acknowledges this, and therefore, that is why he's given us chapter 14. Chapter 14 is meant to encourage the readers after the horrifying description of the satanically empowered persecutors of believers described in chapter 13. And the relationship between these two chapters is obvious. Let's look at the parallels between the end of chapter 13 and the beginning of chapter 14 to make the case that these chapters are related. They're engaging in a conversation, these two chapters, or we should be in Revelation at this point. So, at the end of Revelation 13, the mark of the beast is put on the forehead, and the name of the beast. Well, look here at the very first verses of chapter 14, where the name of the Father is written on the foreheads of the 144,000. And then we're told what will happen to those in the future who have this mark of the beast. Look at verse 9. If anyone worships the beast and has this mark, well, they will drink from the wine of God's wrath. However, those who have the mark of the Father on their foreheads, they will stand with the Lamb on Mount Zion. Two opposite fates of people with two opposite marks. These are both flash forwards to what will happen at the end of the tribulation. That's my perspective. These are previews of coming attractions in the future. We have two marks. We also have two harvests, a harvest of the Son of Man, gathering believers to himself, and also a harvest of unbelievers at this time who are put into the winepress of the wrath of God. Looking forward to what will happen later in the future in chapter 19. Well, this entire section, I would argue, is designed as a call for endurance for those who are going to be alive during the tribulation. Look at this. A call for endurance. Here's what it says explicitly in verse 12. Here is a call for endurance during the saints, for the saints. John recognizes that during this reign of the Antichrist, there will be many martyrs on the earth during this time. And therefore, he says, he pronounces a special blessing on those martyrs. Blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Now, what is this event referring to? It's got to be the abomination of desolation. When the image is set up and when the mark of the beast is enforced, those who refuse to accept the mark of the beast and worship his image, from that point on, they will be blessed. Well, if chapters 11 and 12 set up all of the bad guys in Revelation, chapters 17 through 20 are going to knock them down one at a time. And we are together going to witness the victory of the Lamb against his enemies in our final lecture on Revelation next.